Hey everybody, welcome back. It's your host, Neo Gentrix, here with Food for Thought, Thoughts That Fit For You, a Dark Cancer Production Season 3. And we're back with another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about the synthetic opioids. I have 4 of them listed here. Last time we talked about one of the most common but most dangerous organic opioids, but today we're going to talk about 2, 3, maybe 4 of them, the synthetic ones, but we're going to also cover the most dangerous one of them all, fentanyl. And we're going to go ahead and get started with that right quick in a few seconds. Now, just to give a quick update, there's been a lot of stuff going on in my life that have been delaying me from doing some of the stuff that I would love to do. But like I said, I plan to be making more episodes more often for each and every one of you. So again, thank you for your time and thank you for listening in. And I hope you enjoy. So let's get started. Crisis in many countries. And the Center for Disease Control, or the CDC, um, estimates that more than 31,000 overdose deaths in the United States in 2008 alone involved synthetic opioids, which included fentanyl, which has, for whatever reason, resurfaced at the end of 2022, the beginning of this year. All right, everybody. Not quite done yet. There's still a few more that still another one I need to talk about. I did mention fentanyl, and yes, it is extremely dangerous, but there's something similar to fentanyl that's just as dangerous, uh, probably more dangerous than fentanyl. Just not as common, but it is there. And that would be the synthetic opioid carfentanil. Just add the word car in front of the word fentanyl. I promise you, you probably have seen this before but didn't know how to pronounce it, or you may have never heard of it but you didn't realize it. Anyway, carfentanil is a synthetic opioid, much like the other two, that is estimated to be about 100 times more potent than fentanyl and 10,000 more times more potent than morphine, meaning it's extremely effective. And this specific drug, and dare I even say this for most people who shouldn't even know this, but it is primarily used in tranquilizers for large animals such as elephants, but it has been found in illegal drug markets in recent years. And you're like, well, Neo, why are you bringing up carfentanil if it's mainly used in tranquilizers for animals? You'd be surprised. In other countries, drugs aren't regulated like they are here. So a tranquilizer dart that they use on humans may be the same tranquilizer dart they use on animals, which means that there's a high risk that you can still end up with this in your system without realizing it. There's also a chance that you can come across it mixed with something else entirely. Like carfentanil can be mixed with fentanyl, morphine, and a bunch of other drugs together, and you wouldn't even know. That being said, carfentanil, like the others, is a Schedule II controlled substance, and in the United States, which it means that it has a high potency for abuse and dependence, as like everything else. It can be prescribed by a healthcare professional for the management of severe pain, but it should only be used under, again, close medical supervision. So, okay, well, that's fine and all, but again, carfentanil is mainly used for tranquilizers, and we don't really use tranquilizers on humans, or at least we would like to believe that, because, it's inhumane. Well, you may believe that, but a lot of people out there don't, and there are people out there who still do this. The high potency of carfentanil makes it particularly dangerous for misuse and accidental ingestion as well. Even a very small amount of this drug can cause an overdose, which can lead to respiratory failure, a coma, or in some people's cases, death. That being said, and this is something I didn't mention before with fentanyl, but carfentanil and fentanyl can also be absorbed through the skin as a powder, so keep that in mind. Another issue is its prevalence of counterfeit or illegally obtained carfentanil. These drugs can often be mixed with other substances, as I mentioned before, such as heroin or cocaine, and that also increases its risks of overdosing. And since you can't check the purity of these drugs when you get them on the black market or such, it's very, very dangerous to even accept it from anyone, especially when you don't know what it is. And like I mentioned earlier, the opioid crisis here in the United States has been mainly driven in part by the proliferation of synthetic opioids, including carfentanil, fentanyl, hydrocodone, and tramadol, just to name a few. Okay, this isn't all of them. This is just a few that I'm talking about now, just to bring some attention to it. Okay. The opioid epidemic has resulted in a high number of overdose deaths each year, carfentanil being one of the most potent and dangerous synthetic opioids that's available on the market. And much like everything else, like I said, should not be taken recreationally and must be taken under medical supervision. So to recap just how bad this is, the misuse of carfentanil can lead to addiction, overdose, and death. It is estimated to be, as a synthetic opioid, to be 100 times more potent than fentanyl and 10,000 times more potent than morphine. And while it's mainly used in tranquilizers for animals, it can still be bought illegally, which makes it just as dangerous and just as high a chance of misuse or accidental ingestion without paying attention or by picking up something random on the side of the road. We both all know that homeless people exist on the side of the road. Not every homeless person is innocent. This is true. But not every homeless person is a druggie or a drughead. Okay? That being said, We don't know what all is being passed around between them or what else is there. So if one of them drops something that looks like it's a pouch or something, your best action would be to probably just leave it alone and walk away. Though I know probably there are a lot of people out there who will not do this. And for that, all I can say is to each their own. If you want to take that risk, by all means, go for it. But just be advised, be safe, and take precautions. Got one more to go. Let's do this. Hey everybody, welcome back. I was going to say that carfentanil was the last of the synthetic opioids that I was going to cover today, but I feel like I should cover something that's a little less potent than the three I mentioned. And I said it earlier in one of the previous parts of this episode, but I'll just go ahead and state it again for clarity, and that's the synthetic opioid Tramadol, spelled Tramadol. It is a opioid medication that's used to manage moderate to severe pain, just like all of them are, because that's essentially what opioids do. But it works by binding to specific receptors in the brain that reduce the perception of pain. It's different from the other ones, as it only affects the levels of certain neurotransmitters in your brain, which can increase its effects. However, Tramadol is available in both immediate release and extended release formulations, and it can be used or taken orally or by injection. It's typically prescribed for short-term pain management, usually after surgeries or an injury. It's usually the better alternative than the others. However, it can also be prescribed for chronic pain, such as in the case of cancer. While Tramadol, unlike the others, is considered to be less potent than the other opioids, it still has the potential for abuse and dependence and overdosing. The difference is it's not as bad, but it's still there. Long-term use of Tramadol can lead to physical dependence, which means the person adapts to the drug and requires more of it to achieve the same effect that it does. And of course, misuse of Tramadol leads to addiction, characterized by the compulsive drug-seeking behavior I mentioned earlier, and the inability to control the use, let alone their desire for it. Obviously, mixing Tramadol with other substances such as alcohol can lead to risks of overdosing or serious side effects, so definitely don't do that. And it can also interact with other medications such as antidepressants, so it's important to inform your healthcare provider of all the medications you are taking before you start taking this, because unlike the other ones, this one will mix with what's there and it'll either increase its effects or slightly change its effects based off of it. Also, since I've brought this up, it's also important to note that Tramadol may also cause withdrawal symptoms if it's just suddenly stopped. This is one of those drugs that you have to slow your roll off of if you've been taking for a while. And it's important to follow the dosage schedule that is directed by healthcare professionals, especially the one who assigned it to you, and to talk to your doctor before you just stop taking it. This is not something you could just stop. Okay? While it's not as dangerous as the other ones, as far as potency is concerned, it's still just as effective, if not as dangerous, in the sense that it's not something that you can walk away from and just be like, okay, I'm done taking this today, and you're done. That's not how this one works. In summary, Tramadol is a synthetic opioid medication that is used for moderate to severe pain. It's less potent than the other opioids, but still has the potential for abuse, dependency, and overdose. And it's very important to be aware of the risks and to take steps to protect yourself and your loved ones when you have to take it, if you have to take it at all. Okay? So with that, that's all I'm going to cover on synthetic opioids, or at least the certain names or branded ones for now. We're going to take a break. We're going to go back to talking about learning styles, and then we're going to come back and talk about certain stimulants that are available as narcotics, as well as depressants, hallucinogens, inhalants, and of course, at some point we have to get to cannabis. But like I said, there are many other things that I want to cover, things that I said I was going to cover that I haven't covered, but that's the thing that we're going with now. Also, if you know anybody who has had to deal with this or had to deal with any of these opioids, Feel free to leave a comment down below. I thank you for your time. This is your host, Neo Gentrix, signing out. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Try to stay drug-free and be blessed.